6 months after humanity's arrival at the Galactic Center, the Galactic Council faced the greatest crisis in its 50,000-year history. The emergency alarms had been ringing for 3 days straight. Emergency sessions ran around the clock as representatives from across the galaxy reported the same impossible news. Entire star systems were going dark. It had started in the Outer Rim territories. Survey ships arrived at inhabited systems to find empty space where planets should have been. Not destroyed planets, not dead planets, simply gone as if they had never existed. The phenomenon was spreading inward toward the galactic core, consuming everything in its path at an alarming rate. Council scientists had no explanation. Their most advanced instruments detected nothing unusual in the affected regions. Space appeared normal in every way except for the complete absence of matter. It was as if reality itself was being erased. 27 systems have vanished in the past 72 hours, reported Grand Admiral Corvus grimly. At this rate, the phenomenon will reach the core worlds within a month. Our physicists are baffled, admitted Calculator Prime. This violates every known law of physics. Matter cannot simply cease to exist without leaving some trace of energy or debris. What about evacuation? Asked Counselor Zephyrite. We are trying, replied Corvus. But evacuating entire star systems takes months even with our fastest ships. We do not have enough time. Elder Omnira had remained silent through most of these emergency sessions, but now she spoke with the authority of her vast experience. In all my years, I have never encountered anything like this, she said quietly. This is beyond the scope of traditional galactic science. We need new approaches, new thinking. Veltar knew what she was suggesting. Send for the humans. Within hours, Kyung-Ho Lee arrived from Earth's growing embassy station. As humanity's crisis coordinator, he had been trained to handle impossible emergencies, but even he seemed shaken by the magnitude of the situation. Show me everything, said Kyung-Ho, settling into the Council's war room. For 2 hours, alien scientists presented their data, gravitational readings, electromagnetic scans, quantum field measurements, temporal distortion analyses. Every piece of information pointed to the same conclusion. Something was making entire star systems disappear without a trace. What do your scientists think is causing this? Asked Kyung-Ho. We have no theories, admitted Calculator Prime. Our models cannot account for this phenomenon. Kyung-Ho studied the data displays quietly. Then he asked a question that surprised everyone. Have you tried asking the vanished systems what happened to them? That is impossible, said Zephyrite. They no longer exist. There is no one left to ask. Are you sure about that? Asked Kyung-Ho. He was already working on a handheld device, entering calculations that made the alien scientists lean forward with interest. According to your own sensor data, these systems are not destroyed. They are displaced. The energy signatures suggest they still exist, but in a different location or dimension. That is scientifically impossible, protested Calculator Prime. So was faster-than-light travel until someone figured it out, replied Kyung-Ho calmly. Can I speak with the rest of my team? Within an hour, the council chamber filled with humans. Nayeon Shin, Earth's theoretical physicist, Min Jae Park, the diplomatic specialist, Sun Ho Choi, the navigation expert who had guided humanity through the dark matter streams. Each brought a different perspective to the crisis. It's not an attack, announced Nayeon after reviewing the data. This is a natural phenomenon, but one that operates on principles we don't understand yet. How can you be certain? Asked Veltar. Look at the pattern, said Nayeon, highlighting affected regions on the galactic map. If this were a weapon, it would target strategic locations. Military bases, major population centers, industrial systems. But the disappearances are following what looks like a natural progression along cosmic energy fields. Sunho was studying the same data from a navigator's perspective. She's right. This follows the same kind of patterns we see in the dark matter streams. It's like a current in space-time itself. But what could cause entire star systems to be swept away by a current? Asked Grand Admiral Corvus. Maybe they're not being swept away, suggested Minjae thoughtfully. Maybe they're being swept somewhere. The room fell silent as the implications of this idea settled in. You think the missing systems still exist? Asked Elder Omnira. I think they've been moved, said Minji, like objects caught in a river current and carried downstream. The question is, where is downstream? Nayeon was already working on new calculations. If this is a current phenomenon, We should be able to trace it back to its source and forward to its destination. Give me access to your navigational computers. For the next 6 hours, human and alien scientists worked together in ways that had never been attempted before. Humans provided innovative theories, while aliens contributed vast databases of historical knowledge. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. "Found it," announced Sunho finally. "The current originates from a region of space that your maps show as empty. But according to these readings, something massive is there, something that's been hidden until now." "Hidden how?" asked Veltar. "Camouflaged," replied Neon. "Whatever is causing this has been using the same principles that make dark matter invisible to most sensors. But humans learned to detect dark matter streams, so we can adapt those techniques." "What do you need?" asked Corvus. "A fast ship and permission to investigate the source," said Kyung-ho. "Also, we'll need volunteers from Council species. This is going to require cooperation between human innovation and galactic experience." "Too dangerous," protested Threx. "If you are wrong, we lose our best minds just when we need them most." "If we're right," countered Minjae, "we might find a way to save everyone." Including the systems that have already disappeared, Elder Omnira made the decision. "Go, take whatever you need. The Council will support your mission fully." The expedition ship New Harmony launched within 12 hours. The crew included humans and representatives from 8 different Council species, working together as a single team. It was the first truly integrated galactic crew in the Council's history. The journey to the source took 2 days through regions of space that had been considered empty for millennia. But as they approached the coordinates Sunho had calculated, their sensors began detecting something extraordinary. "It's a space station," reported the ship's Altarian sensor operator. "But it's enormous. Larger than our entire Council complex and old," added the crystalline engineer. "These materials predate anything in our databases." "It's also inhabited," said Kyung-ho, studying the communication intercepts. "We're receiving signals in languages none of our translators recognize." As the New Harmony approached the ancient station, they discovered the truth behind the disappearing star systems. The station was a massive ark, built by a civilization so advanced that they existed partially outside normal spacetime. They had been collecting inhabited systems for millions of years, preserving them from various galactic catastrophes. "They're gardeners," explained Neon after the first communication exchange. "They collect civilizations that are about to be destroyed by natural disasters, wars, or cosmic events. They preserve them in pocket dimensions until it's safe to return them to normal space." "But why now?" asked the expedition's diplomatic officer. "What disaster are they trying to protect us from?" The answer came from the ancient beings themselves, speaking through translation devices that converted their thoughts directly into understandable concepts. "Your galaxy enters a period of instability," they explained. "The galactic core will soon undergo changes that will make most systems uninhabitable for several thousand years. We preserve life until the danger passes." "But you're taking systems without permission," protested Minjae. "Entire civilizations are being uprooted without explanation. In past cycles, we observed species panic and fight each other when faced with extinction," replied the ancient beings. "Preservation was more efficient when performed quickly and quietly." Kyung-ho saw an opportunity. "What if we told you that this galaxy has changed? That our species have learned to cooperate instead of fight? Would you be willing to work with us instead of simply taking our systems?" The ancient beings considered this proposal for exactly 17 seconds, which apparently represented hours of discussion in their accelerated time frame. "Your species interests us," they finally replied. "You arrived here through methods we had not anticipated. Your cooperation includes multiple species working as equals. This suggests evolution beyond our previous observations." "We propose a test," said the ancient beings. "We will return one of the preserved systems to normal space. If your galactic civilization can successfully evacuate and protect that system's inhabitants during the coming instability, we will reconsider our preservation protocol." The test began immediately. The ancient beings returned the Kepler system, complete with 3 inhabited worlds and 12 billion sentient beings, to normal space in a region that would be safe for several months. What happened next surprised even the humans. The Galactic Council launched the largest cooperative effort in its history. Ships from 47 different species worked together to evacuate the Kepler system. The testing chamber was designed to break the spirit of any species that entered it. High Inquisitor Nexus had created these challenges over the course of several centuries. The insectoid being took great pride in designing tests that revealed the weaknesses of primitive civilizations. In 10,000 years, only 12 species had passed all the trials. Most failed within the first hour. Nexus looked at the humans through the chamber's viewing window. They stood in a small group, talking quietly among themselves. They did not seem nervous or afraid, which surprised him. Most species begged for mercy before the tests even began. "The first trial is simple," announced Nexus, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You will face a military simulation. Your species must demonstrate tactical knowledge against a superior enemy force. You have 1 hour to achieve victory or surrender." The chamber transformed around the humans. Holographic displays showed a star system under attack. Enemy ships surrounded a planet filled with innocent civilians. The human team had access to a small fleet of defenders, but they were outnumbered 10 to 1. Haeyeon Song stepped forward to take command. She had studied military strategy since she was young, but she had never faced anything like this. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation. Their weapons were more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. "Traditional military tactics would never work. Suggestions?" asked Haeyeon, looking at her team. "The enemy expects us to fight like they do," said Do-Yun. "Look at their formation. It's perfect for fighting other advanced civilizations." "But we're not an advanced civilization." "What do you mean?" asked Ji-won. "We're humans," said Sunho with a grin. "We don't fight fair." Haeyeon understood immediately. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, she ordered the human ships to scatter in all directions. The enemy followed, breaking their perfect formation to chase individual targets. But the human ships were not running away. They were leading the enemy into an asteroid field. "Now," ordered Haeyeon. The human ships used their advanced maneuvering systems to hide behind asteroids. When enemy ships followed them around the space rocks, they found themselves facing not weapons but mining charges attached to the asteroids themselves. The humans had turned the asteroid field into a massive minefield. Enemy ships exploded as asteroids detonated around them. The survivors found themselves trapped in a maze of floating debris, easy targets for the human defenders they had been chasing. The simulation ended with complete human victory. The chamber fell silent. "Impossible," whispered Nexus. "That scenario was designed to be unwinnable. How did they—" "They changed the rules," said Counselor Zephyrite, who had been watching from the observation deck. "Instead of accepting the parameters of the engagement, they created new ones." The second test began immediately. This time, Youngmin Kang faced a cultural challenge. The chamber filled with holographic representatives from dozens of alien civilizations. Each species had different customs, different ways of thinking, different values. The test required negotiating a peace agreement between species that had been at war for centuries. Most candidates spent hours learning about each civilization's history and customs. Youngmin took a different approach. He spent 5 minutes talking to each representative, asking them simple questions. "What do your people value most?" He asked a warrior species known for their pride. "Honor in battle," came the reply. "What do your children dream about when they sleep?" He asked a peaceful species known for their art. "Beautiful worlds where music fills the air." "What makes your people laugh?" He asked a logical species known for their mathematics. Elegant solutions to complex problems. Within an hour, Youngmin had done something no previous candidate had accomplished. He had found common ground between species that seemed to have nothing in common. Warriors, artists, and mathematicians all wanted their children to have better lives than they had. They all took pride in their work. They all feared being forgotten. "You have achieved what our diplomats could not accomplish in decades," said Veltar, entering the chamber personally. "How did you understand these cultures so quickly?" "People are people," said Youngman simply. "Different languages, different customs, but the same basic needs. Everyone wants to feel important. Everyone wants their children to be safe. Everyone wants to be remembered after they die." The third test challenged Seojin Han with a philosophical problem. The chamber showed her a dying world where resources were running out. She had to choose which cities would survive and which would be abandoned. Millions of lives hung in the balance. Previous candidates had spent days trying to calculate the most logical solution. Some chose to save the largest cities. Others chose to save the cities with the most advanced technology. A few chose to save the cities with the greatest cultural significance. Seojin studied the problem for 10 minutes, then gave her answer. I refuse to choose. You must choose, said the test program. The planet will die if you do not act. Then I choose a fourth option, said Seojin.
Instead of deciding which cities die,
I will find a way for all of them to live. That is impossible with the available resources. Only if we use the resources the same way they have always been used, replied Seojin. But humans are good at finding new ways to use old things. She began outlining a plan that combined technologies from different cities, shared resources more efficiently, and used the planet's dying energy in ways no one had considered before. Instead of accepting that some people had to die, she found a way to save everyone. The test program struggled to process her solution. It had been designed assuming that scarcity meant difficult choices. But Seojin had shown that scarcity could also mean innovation. This is becoming embarrassing, said Ambassador Threx to his fellow council members. These humans are solving problems we thought were unsolvable. The fourth test should stop them, said Nexus confidently. I have designed a scientific challenge that requires knowledge accumulated over thousands of years. No young species could possibly pass it. The chamber transformed into a laboratory. Minji found herself facing a dying star that threatened to destroy several inhabited systems. She had access to advanced technology, but she needed to understand principles of stellar physics that had taken the Council centuries to discover. Minji looked at the data for exactly 3 minutes. Then she began working. What is she doing? Asked Nexus, watching in confusion as Minji ignored most of the advanced equipment and focused on what appeared to be simple mathematical calculations. She is treating the star like an engine, said Veltar, who was beginning to understand human thinking. Look at her approach. Instead of trying to stop the star from dying, she is trying to make it die in a controlled way. Minji's solution was elegant and simple. Instead of fighting the star's natural death process, she accelerated it in a specific pattern that would cause it to collapse into a small, stable white dwarf instead of exploding into a system-destroying supernova. The inhabited planets would survive and the new star would provide energy for millions of years. How did she know to do that? Asked Nexus, his confidence shaken. We study our own star very carefully, explained Minji. Earth's sun will die someday too. We have been thinking about this problem for decades. Your sun is not scheduled to die for billions of years, said Zephyrite. We like to plan ahead, said Minji with a shrug. The fifth and final test was supposed to be the ultimate challenge. The chamber became a command center facing a galactic crisis. Multiple civilizations were collapsing simultaneously. Trade routes were failing. Wars were breaking out. The galactic economy was heading toward total breakdown. Ji-Wan looked at the chaos on the displays around her. She had 1 hour to create a solution that would save galactic civilization itself. Previous candidates had tried military solutions, economic solutions, or diplomatic solutions. All had failed. Ji-Wan took a different approach. She started making phone calls. Dr. Kim, what are you doing? Asked the test program. I am calling the other humans, said Ji-Wan, as if this should be obvious. Within minutes, she had connected to her entire team. Then she started calling other council species, using the communication codes Youngman had learned during his cultural test. Soon she had representatives from dozens of civilizations talking to each other directly, bypassing the council's formal procedures. The crisis is happening because everyone is trying to solve their own problems separately, explained Ji-Wan to the confused observers. But all these problems are connected. The solution is not one person making decisions for everyone. The solution is everyone working together. Her impromptu galactic conference call lasted exactly 57 minutes. By the end, trade routes were being restored, peace treaties were being signed, and economic cooperation was replacing competition. The crisis was not just solved. It was turned into an opportunity for unprecedented collaboration. The testing chamber powered down. For the first time in its existence, all 5 trials had been completed successfully by the same species. More than that, each solution had been achieved in a way that none of the test designers had considered possible. High Inquisitor Nexus stood in stunned silence. His perfect tests, designed over centuries to reveal the limitations of primitive species, had been solved by humans who had only known about galactic civilization for a month. The Council's private chambers had not seen such heated debate in centuries. For 3 days, representatives from 47 different civilizations argued about what to do with the humans. Some wanted to welcome them immediately into full membership. Others worried that humanity's unconventional methods might disrupt thousands of years of careful galactic order. Elder Omnira had remained silent through most of these discussions. As the oldest member of the council, she had witnessed the rise and fall of more civilizations than anyone else alive. Her species, the Eternals, lived for tens of thousands of years and remembered everything they experienced. When she finally spoke, everyone listened. "I have seen this pattern before," said Omnira, her ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "These humans remind me of the builders, who created most of our current technology before they transcended physical existence 300,000 years ago. They also solved problems in unexpected ways. But the builders were advanced. When we met them," protested Threx, "these humans have barely left their home system. The builders were advanced in different ways," corrected Omnira. "Just as these humans are advanced in different ways. We measure advancement by technology and lifespan. But there are other kinds of advancement." Veltar called for Tewu-O, the human historian, to address the council. The humans had been staying in guest quarters, politely waiting while the aliens decided their fate. But Veltar was beginning to understand that humans might have valuable perspectives on their own capabilities. "Tell us about your species' history," said Veltar when Tewu entered the Great Chamber. "Help us understand how humanity developed these remarkable problem-solving abilities." Tewu had prepared for this question. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's timeline over the past 100,000 years. "Our planet tried to kill us many times," said Tewu simply. "Ice ages that lasted for thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked the sun. Plagues that killed half our population. Asteroids that created global disasters. Most species would have died out. But humans learned to adapt." The display showed early humans migrating across continents, learning to live in deserts, jungles, mountains, and frozen wastelands. "We learned that survival meant cooperation," continued Tewu. "A human alone dies quickly, but humans working together can survive anything. We formed tribes, then villages, then cities, then nations. Each time we faced a crisis, we became better at working together. But your history also shows constant warfare," observed Grand Admiral Corvus. "Your species fought each other for thousands of years." "True," admitted Tewu. "But notice something interesting. After each war, the winners and losers often became allies. We fought the same nations we had been enemies with just decades before. We learned that yesterday's enemy can become tomorrow's friend, if both sides benefit from cooperation." Soyeon Jung joined the presentation to explain the psychological aspects of human development. As Earth's leading expert on interspecies psychology, she had been studying the alien council members since their arrival. "Humans evolved as pack animals," explained Soyeon. "But unlike most pack species, we form packs with strangers. We adopt members from other families, other tribes, even other species. On Earth, humans live peacefully with dozens of different animal species. We call them pets, but they are really adopted family members." The council members looked at each other with surprise. Most species only cooperated with their own kind. "This pack-bonding behavior extends to everything humans do," continued Soyeon. "When we see problems, we instinctively want to help solve them. When we meet strangers, we try to find ways to become friends. When we face enemies, we look for ways to turn them into allies. But surely this makes your species vulnerable to exploitation," said Counselor Zephyrite. "Sometimes," admitted Soyeon. "But more often it makes us stronger. When humans trust each other, they share knowledge freely. This accelerates innovation and problem-solving far beyond what any individual could achieve alone." Jihoon Nam presented humanity's economic philosophy, which proved to be as revolutionary as their other ideas. "Most galactic civilizations seem to follow a scarcity model," observed Jihoon. "Resources are limited, so someone must go without. But humans developed an abundance model. Instead of fighting over limited resources, we find ways to create more resources." He showed examples from Earth's history. "When we ran out of wood for fuel, we discovered coal. When coal became scarce, we found oil. When oil caused pollution, we developed solar and wind power. When farmland became scarce, we learned to grow more food on less land. Each time we faced scarcity, we innovated our way to abundance. This is impossible in the long term," said the Council's chief economist, a being made of living mathematics called Calculator Prime. "Resources are finite. Abundance is an illusion. Only if you think in straight lines," replied Jihoon. "But humans think in circles." We recycle everything. We reuse materials in new ways. We find value in things others consider waste. What looks like scarcity to you looks like opportunity to us. Elder Omnira had been listening carefully to all of these presentations. Finally, she asked the question that had been troubling her. Your species has existed for only 200,000 years, she said to the humans. Most galactic civilizations require millions of years to develop these philosophies. How did you learn so much so quickly? The humans looked at each other before Jiwan answered. Because we nearly died out several times, she said quietly. 75,000 years ago, a massive volcanic eruption almost destroyed all human life. Only a few thousand of us survived. We carry the genetic memory of that near extinction in our DNA. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled alien leaders. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. We learned cooperation because the alternative was death. We learned innovation because standing still meant extinction. We learned to adapt because our planet gave us no choice. These are not advanced philosophies. These are survival skills. The chamber fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. Your species has been tested by catastrophe multiple times and survived, said Omnira slowly. Most species face one major extinction event and either die out or stagnate afterward. But humans have faced dozens of such events and emerged stronger each time. That explains their rapid technological development, mused Calculator Prime. They innovate not from curiosity alone, but from necessity. Their entire civilization is built around overcoming impossible odds. Veltar began to understand why humans had seemed so calm during their trials. You were not impressed by our tests because you have been facing more difficult challenges your entire existence. Your tests were interesting puzzles, said Dohyun with a smile. But they were not life or death situations. We have been solving life or death puzzles since we learned to walk upright. High Inquisitor Nexus, who had been silent since the humans completed his impossible trials, finally spoke. I designed those tests to reveal weaknesses, he admitted. Every species has limitations that make them unsuitable for certain roles in galactic civilization. But humans, you solve problems by refusing to accept that solutions are impossible. Because for us, impossible just means difficult, said Minji. On Earth, if you give up when something seems impossible, you die. So we learned not to give up. Elder Omnira stood, her ancient form moving with surprising grace. Council members, she announced. I have witnessed the rise of dozens of galactic civilizations. Most develop slowly, building on knowledge passed down from previous species. They become advanced, but they also become rigid. They follow established patterns and accepted limitations. She gestured toward the humans. These beings represent something different. They are not just another advanced species joining our community. They are a catalyst species. Their presence will change everything about how galactic civilization operates. Change how? Asked Threx nervously. They will teach us that our established methods are not the only methods, replied Omnira. They will show us that impossible problems often have simple solutions we never considered. They will remind us that cooperation creates more value than competition. She paused, looking directly at each council member. Most importantly, they will help us remember what we have forgotten over thousands of years of comfortable civilization. They will remind us that survival and growth require constant adaptation, constant innovation, and constant willingness to help each other. Veltar felt a strange emotion he had not experienced in centuries. It took him a moment to recognize it as excitement. Are you suggesting that humanity should become full members of the Galactic Council? He asked. I am suggesting, said Elder Omnira, that humanity should help us redesign the Galactic Council itself. We have become comfortable and stagnant. These humans can teach us to become vital and growing again. The chamber erupted in discussion as council members debated this unprecedented suggestion. But watching the humans calmly wait for their decision, Veltar noticed something important. They were not nervous about the outcome. They were curious about what would happen next. That, he realized, was the most human thing of all. Instead of fearing the unknown future, they were excited to discover it. The Galactic Council chamber was the size of a small moon. It floated in space at the center of the galaxy, where millions of stars created a bright backdrop like jewels scattered on black cloth. The chamber had been built over 50,000 years ago, when the first galactic civilizations decided to work together. instead of fighting wars. Council Prime. Veltar stood at the great window watching the stars. In all his years of service, he had seen many species attempt the journey to the galactic center. Most never arrived. Their ships broke down halfway through the trip, or they got lost in the vast emptiness between star systems, or they simply gave up and turned around. "Any word from the humans?" asked Counselor Zephyrate, a being made of living crystal whose voice sounded like wind chimes. "Nothing yet," replied Veltar. "They have been traveling for 23 days. Most species take at least 60 days to make this journey, assuming they make it at all." Ambassador Threx slithered into the observation chamber, his scales now showing the purple color of skepticism. "I still say this is waste of time. These humans probably stole technology from some crashed council ship. They will never make it here." "Perhaps," said Veltar, "but their transmission showed remarkable innovation. Their mathematics are elegant. Their art shows deep emotional complexity. I am curious to meet them. If they arrive," added Grand Admiral Corvus, the military leader whose 6 arms were always ready for action. "My scouts report no human ships in any of the outer systems. They may have already turned back." At that moment, alarms began ringing throughout the council chamber. The great viewing screen activated, showing the space around the station. A ship was approaching, but it was not coming from any of the established hyperspace routes. It was emerging from what looked like empty space itself. "Impossible," whispered Zephyrite. "Ships cannot travel through that region. The dark matter currents would tear apart any known vessel." The human ship Taguk appeared from a ripple in space-time that looked like heat waves rising from hot ground. The ship was smaller than most council vessels, with a design that seemed both graceful and practical. But what shocked the watching aliens was how the ship had arrived. "They used the dark matter streams," said Corvus, his voice filled with disbelief. "No species has ever successfully navigated those currents. We declared them impossible to use over 30,000 years ago." On the bridge of the Taguk, Sun Ho Choi was checking his navigation equipment one more time. The journey through the dark matter streams had been like surfing on invisible waves of gravity. His calculations had been perfect, but the experience had been terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "Captain Park, we are receiving a communication from the station ahead," reported the communications officer. Do-Yun looked at the massive structure growing larger on their view screen. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Cities floated within transparent domes. Ships the size of skyscrapers moved between docking ports. The entire station pulsed with energy and life. "Put them through," said Do-Hyun. The same voice they had heard on Earth spoke to them, but now it sounded surprised. "Human vessel Taguk, this is Galactic Council Station Prime. We did not expect you to arrive so quickly, and your approach route was highly unconventional. Please explain how you navigated the dark matter streams." Sunho stepped forward. "Council Station, this is Navigation Specialist Sunho Choi. We detected quantum currents flowing through what you call dark matter. Our computers calculated that these currents could be used like rivers in space. We built our FTL drives to ride these currents instead of fighting against them." There was a long pause before the council responded. "That is theoretically impossible. Our greatest scientists declared the dark matter streams unusable millennia ago. With respect, Council Station, your scientists may have been using the wrong approach," said Minji Lee, joining the conversation. "We discovered that dark matter responds differently to quantum fields than regular matter. Instead of trying to push through it, we learned to dance with it." Inside the council chamber, the alien leaders looked at each other with expressions that would have been confusion if humans could have recognized them. Veltar had lived long enough to know when something important was happening. "Bring them to docking port 7, he commanded. "I want to meet these humans immediately." The docking process took 2 hours. Human and alien technologies had to work together for the first time, but both sides were patient and careful. Finally, the airlock opened and the first humans stepped into galactic civilization. Ji-Won Kim led the delegation. She wore a simple blue diplomatic uniform that represented Earth's oceans and sky. Behind her walked Do-Yun in his military dress uniform, Minji in her engineer's practical clothes, and 5 other specialists who represented humanity's best minds. The council chamber was vast and beautiful. Beings from dozens of different worlds stood waiting to greet them. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of living metal. A few seemed to be pure energy contained in force fields, but all of them were staring at the humans with what could only be described as amazement. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," said Veltar, his voice now speaking perfect Korean again. I am Council Prime Veltar. I have been looking forward to meeting your species. Ji-won bowed politely, the way she had been taught in diplomatic school. Thank you for receiving us, Council Prime. I am Dr. Ji-won Kim, representing the people of Earth. We are honored to be here. The honor is ours, replied Veltar. Your arrival has been most remarkable. In 50,000 years of Council history, no species has ever navigated the dark matter stream successfully. How did you accomplish this? Minji spoke up. We approached the problem differently. Most of your historical records show species trying to overcome the dark matter with brute force. We learned to work with it instead. Like sailing with the wind instead of against it. Counselor Zephyrite's crystal body chimed with interest. Fascinating. Our physicists have been trying to solve this problem for centuries. You did it in how long? About 6 months, said Minji. The council chamber fell silent. 6 months was no time at all for beings who lived for thousands of years. Grand Admiral Corvus stepped forward. His 6 arms crossing in what humans would learn was a gesture of respect. Your ship design is also unusual. Our sensors show it uses far less energy than our vessels but travels much faster. How is this possible? Sunho answered this time. We studied efficiency instead of power. Human civilization developed on a world with limited resources. We learned to do more with less. Our FTL drives use quantum tunneling principles that require precise timing instead of massive energy expenditure. Quantum tunneling? Asked Threx, his scales shifting to a color that meant deep thought. We abandoned those theories as impractical centuries ago. Sometimes old ideas work better than new ones, said Dohyun with a small smile. On Earth we have a saying, the simplest solution is often the best solution. Veltar found himself genuinely impressed. Most species that arrived at the council were nervous and overwhelmed. These humans seemed calm and confident. They had not only completed an impossible journey, they had done it using methods the council had never considered. We have prepared quarters for your delegation, said Veltar. Tomorrow we will begin the formal evaluation process. I must warn you, the tests are designed to challenge even the most advanced civilizations. Ji-won nodded. We understand, Council Prime, we are ready. As the humans were led to their quarters, the council members remained in the chamber, discussing what they had witnessed. They speak of efficiency and working with natural forces instead of conquering them, mused Zephyrite. This is a philosophy we have not encountered before. Their ship arrived in 23 days, added Corvus. The previous record was 58 days, set by the Altarians 3,000 years ago. And they seem genuinely unimpressed by our technology, noted Threx. Most species are overwhelmed by their first sight of the council chamber. These humans looked around like they were visiting an interesting museum. Veltar watched through the great window as more human ships appeared from the dark matter streams. Earth had not sent just one vessel. They had sent an entire fleet, all using the impossible navigation methods that had brought them here faster than anyone thought possible. I believe, said Veltar slowly, that we are about to learn as much from them as they learn from us. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited the gas giant Zirian Prime like a metal moon. Inside its crystal halls, Council Prime Veltar studied the strange transmission that had arrived 3 cycles ago. The signal came from a system so far away that most council members had never bothered to map it. They called it the Outer Spiral, a place where stars were young and planets were supposed to be empty of intelligent life. But this signal was different. It contained mathematical equations that made sense, music that somehow felt familiar even to alien ears, pictures of a blue and green world with white clouds, and most impossible of all, the transmission showed clear evidence of faster-than-light travel. Veltar had lived for over 2,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched civilizations discover fire, then electricity, then spaceflight. But none had ever developed FTL technology without first making contact with the Galactic Council. The Council had strict rules about this. Young species needed guidance. They needed to prove they were ready for the galaxy's advanced knowledge. This is impossible, said Ambassador Threx, his reptilian scales changing color with agitation. No species develops FTL drives without our help. These creatures must have stolen our technology somehow. Veltar remained calm. He had learned patience over his long life. The signal suggests otherwise, old friend. Look at these drive signatures. They are unlike anything in our databases. These humans, as they call themselves, have found a completely different path to the stars. On the planet Earth, far away in the outer spiral, Ji-won Kim stood in the Seoul Space Center looking up at the night sky. She had spent 15 years working on humanity's first FTL drive. The test 3 days ago had been perfect. Their ship had jumped from Earth to Pluto and back in less than an hour. But something had gone wrong with the communication array during the jump. They had accidentally broadcast their location and technological capabilities across half the galaxy. Now Earth was receiving return signals. Lots of them. Dr. Kim, called her assistant, running across the control room with a data pad. The signals are getting stronger. We've identified at least 47 different transmission sources. They're all trying to talk to us. Ji-won felt her heart racing. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. But she felt scared too. Earth had spent centuries fighting wars over resources and territory. What would beings from other worlds want with them? Captain Do-hyun Park entered the control room wearing his military uniform. He was the pilot who had tested the FTL drive, a calm man who never seemed worried about anything dangerous. But today his face showed concern. "Dr. Kim, we need to talk," he said quietly. "The government officials are meeting right now. They want to know if we should respond to these alien signals or pretend we never sent our broadcast." Before Ji-won could answer, the main communication screen lit up. A voice spoke in perfect Korean, though it sounded strange, like several different voices speaking together. "People of Earth, this is the Galactic Council. We have received your transmission and noted your technological achievements. This is highly unusual. Most species require our guidance to develop faster than light travel. You have accomplished this independently. We must determine if your species is ready for contact with galactic civilization." The voice paused. Ji-won and Do-hyun looked at each other with wide eyes. "We are sending you coordinates for a meeting place. You have 30 of your days to arrive at these coordinates if you wish to join the galactic community. However, be warned. The journey will test your capabilities. Many species have attempted this journey. Very few have succeeded. If you fail, we will assume your species is not ready for galactic contact and will leave you in isolation for another 1,000 years." The transmission ended. The control room fell silent except for the humming of computers. Min-ji Lee, the chief engineer who had designed humanity's FTL drives, was the first to speak. "They want us to travel to the center of the galaxy. That's over 26,000 light-years away. Our drives have only been tested for short jumps. Can we do it?" asked Do-hyun. Min-ji stared at the star charts appearing on her screen. "I don't know. The math says it should work, but we've never tried anything like this. The power requirements alone would drain half of South Korea's electrical grid." "What if we don't go?" asked Ji-won. Captain Park crossed his arms. "Then we wait 1,000 years for another chance. By then, everyone we know will be dead. Their children's children will be dead." "What if we go and fail?" asked Min-ji. "Then at least we tried," said Do-hyun. Over the next week, Earth's governments held emergency meetings. Scientists worked around the clock to prepare humanity's most advanced spaceship, the Taeguk, for the longest journey in human history. The ship had been built for exploring nearby star systems. Now it would have to cross the entire galaxy. The world's best minds came together in Seoul. Soon-ho Choi, a navigation specialist who had mapped quantum currents in space. Hyeon Song, a military advisor who understood alien psychology from studying their signals. Youngmin Kang, who had learned to decode the cultural patterns hidden in the Council's transmissions. "The aliens expect us to fail," said Youngmin during one late-night planning session. "Their message was polite, but I can hear the doubt in their voices. They think we're just another primitive species that got lucky with one invention." "Maybe we are," said Min-ji, looking exhausted after days of non-stop work on the ship's systems. "No," said Ji-won firmly. "Humans have always been good at solving impossible problems. We survived ice ages without technology. We learned to fly when everyone said it was impossible. We put people on the moon when our computers were less powerful than today's phones. This is just another impossible problem." Do-hyun nodded. "Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We're already isolated on one small planet. If we fail, we'll still be isolated. But if we succeed, we become part of something bigger," finished Ji-won. The Taeguk launched on a Tuesday morning. Half the world watched the live broadcast as humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission left Earth's orbit. The ship looked small against the vastness of space, but it carried the hopes and dreams of 8 billion people. Inside the ship, G1 looked out at the stars and wondered what they would find at the galactic center. She wondered if humanity was really ready for whatever waited for them out there. But she also knew that humans had always been explorers. From the first people who left Africa to explore the world, to the astronauts who walked on the moon, humans always wanted to see what was over the next hill. Now they were about to find out what was waiting for them among the stars.